thank you very much, Kisa and Matt and Joost, for your inspiring stories and the enthusiasm with which you share these stories. Annette, you mentioned already that northern Uganda is traditionally not a vegetable growing area, but still the uptake of the horticultural practices that you train the people in is very high. And also, people are enthusiastic not only about these practices, but also of the varieties, the new varieties that they are exposed to. So, what makes that uptake so high? And I saw in the comments section that somebody had a question also saying, well, I have seen that with varieties that farmers know, but here you deal with a new crop and you deal with new varieties. So what makes this uptake so high? Annette?
Annette, you're muted.
My network was on and off, and I mean, somehow I'm using my phone, somehow on the network. One of the things is that I really appreciate what I'm also personally, I'm really passionate seeing on the ground. One of the things I think why we get the positive changes, it's because we are not saying that we are yet there. We are not yet there. We are still nurturing the changes. The changes are, we are still in the process. We are still yet not mature, but this is, remember, this was a project for only 2 years. And the 2 years, you cannot say how you cannot have a long-term impact. But assuming that we have an extension of a project for more years, what would happen? So we are nurturing still these changes which are coming alongside the way. And also we are also able to see there's farmer to farmer, there's a lot of farmer to farmer training. There's a lot of farmer whereby a lead farmer, people are learning from each other. Apart from our lead farmers, our key farmers, people learn from them. I think people, when they see what is happening in the neighborhood, they're able to pick a leaf from there and they're able to replicate whatever is happening. The things that you really see, the way, for example, before we started, people were spraying the pesticides on the tomatoes. The reason why they are spraying pesticides on the tomatoes because they thought the moment you spray pesticides on the tomatoes, they can have long off-shelf life. But these things have changed when they're able to see that there are some varieties like our variety Padima, when they were able to see it, they tested it, it could last for more than 2 months. They said, oh, we can even, the way it is, the way how we are handling it, the way how we are keeping it, it is influencing our off-shelf life.
Okay, thank you very much, Annette, for this explanation. So you say what makes your approach successful is on the one hand, this farmer-to-farmer exchange, which helps in increasing adoption rates, but also the seeing is believing approach, where you really expose farmers to new practices and show that these are effective. Are there any more critical success factors to your approach?
Yes, the critical success factor here is that I think one of the things which I didn't mention behind is that out of all this, there is also increased sales. In our sales have been able to be increased, the demand of our products have been able to be increased in that area. But this is not our core objective why we are doing what we do. What we wanted is that we wanted first have what we call as transfer the knowledge. Trust, so that we can build trust from our farmers. So the farmers, when they build trust in you, then they're able now to replicate easily. So one thing is that we are able to set up different demos. They're able to see it is very possible. It is possible. So when they're saying that is possible, they build trust. When they build trust in somebody in our team, then they're able to make a selection of their choice, of the variety of their choice. What we need to do is that we train the farmers on how to grow, on what to grow, then we empower farmers to make a choice. That has been our core values. And our knowledge is a public good. So we usually use like WhatsApp groups, Grow How, that is Grow How. It has been translated in different different languages, so they can easily ask questions and they get the answers. Specifically, actually, they don't even ask. Sometimes they ask, somebody has grown another variety, but is able to ask a question. How do I handle this? So all the knowledge we give it to them free of charge. So they're able to build trust in us, and based on that, they're able to make choices.
Okay, thank you very much on that. So it's on the one hand, it's trust, it's providing them with the knowledge, but also not pushing too hard and still give them the possibility to make their own choice. So Joost, can I ask you, do you see, how would you break down this success of East-West seeds in this approach of exposing farmers to new crops and varieties and training them on horticulture, leading to quite high adoption in these 2 years? Sorry,
Okay.
Annette, Annette, I would like to move to Joost now. Okay, or you would like to add one more thing?
Yeah, no, the only thing which I'm looking at is that we are not, I think the competition now, we are opening competition for everyone. It's like now, it's now a competitive world. Everyone now can be able to, it is easier for you to invest in this sector right now.
Okay, thank you, Annette, for this addition. Joost, could you add anything in this area on critical success factors, how to break down the success? And then look at the farmer side, the business for the farmers, as well as for these initiatives in general.
I would add, beyond what Annette said, because I think Annette covered a number of indeed essential dimensions of the success, I would add 3 other dimensions. One is that the training program is set up in such a way that farmers understand the entire life production cycle, are taught to learn the entire production cycle, and it's broken down into very clearly distinct steps. Within those different steps, there are a number of things that are easy to adopt, and we see from the figures that there's a very high adoption rate among farmers of easy to adopt things such as creating raised beds, such as using different new kinds of trellising. And there's also a number of things that are harder to adopt, but they can also be followed up in the second year or third year of farmers repeating the success. And those have to do more with more precision aspects of production, such as the way that fertilizer is used or the way that specific pesticides are used. Together, of course, it's the whole TA, but it gives the opportunity for farmers to step in immediately without having to adopt an entire package, and they can grow into it. The second aspect of it is of a success of beyond the trust and the knowledge. Connecting to that really is, in this particular case, is also a real willingness to share. And everybody seemed, there was a drive for everyone to be sharing their success and explaining their success to others. And I think it also demonstrates that sharing is in everybody's benefit, that holding your knowledge to yourself or trying to corner a tiny market is not in your own self-interest and in nobody's interest. So that willingness to share at all levels and continuously sharing is also critical. The third part of it, I think, of a key success factor is actually ensuring that there is that availability of everything that is being promoted. So there's availability of access to knowledge, there's availability of the kinds of quality of seed and the kinds of inputs and technologies that are simple technologies that do make sure that the horticulture goes from a hit and happy-go-lucky hit or miss kind of a thing to a well-informed professional activity that everyone can actually adopt.
Okay, thank you very much, Joost. So there have to be different issues in place to make this successful. I saw one question in the comment section, and maybe that's hard to answer or impossible to answer, but I would still like to ask to Annette. Somebody asked, what is most important? Is it actually access to the knowledge, or is it actually access to the seed and the varieties? Could you answer that question, or is it a very difficult one? Please unmute yourself, yes.
Okay, for me, one thing from the experience I've had in Northern Uganda, it's one thing I really emphasize is the access to knowledge.
Mm.
Why? Because the moment somebody, even if we have seen Uganda, like several NGOs have been giving seeds to the communities, but what happens? These seeds have not yet been able to get results. So the question is that it is about the variety, it's about the techniques.
Mm. Okay, that's a short and concise answer. Then there was also a question like, okay, you produce a good horticultural crop, but how, and you have this very intensive knowledge trajectory through the whole horticultural cycle, but how to go from there? So when you have the product, how, is there always a market available for the product, or does that automatically happen? And maybe Joost can give an answer to that. I don't know if you looked in your case study also to that aspect. So once you have the high yield, once you have the quality product, you cannot consume it all yourself in your household. So what about this market aspect of the value chain?
Well, let me take a first start, and I think Annette can build on that. We certainly did talk to a number of traders as part of the case study, and what we also noticed there was that a couple of things. First of all, the traders that we spoke to for different kinds of crops do prefer to be able to source more locally rather than having to go farther. There's a lot less risk to it. They can control the supplies and the quality better. And of course, there's a lot less cost to it. So all of them would prefer that. Now, this region, due to in the past also things like bacterial wilt and tomato mosaic virus, had developed a reputation as an area which did not was not a source of horticulture crops. With the growth of this program, we noticed that a number of traders were starting to say, hey, we can actually start now thinking about both asking for the production and the kind of volumes that we need, or trying to source them from people spontaneously. So there was starting to become a shift in people rethinking about sourcing locally rather than going to the east of Uganda or further southwest, much further away and at much higher cost. At this particular moment, the market, except certainly in a rainy season for tomatoes, where it could be saturated, on the whole is very under-supplied. So in terms of oversupply, that's not yet an issue. Towards the future and other regions, I think that's obviously a different consideration.
Okay, thank you, Joost. Okay, Annette, you said, well, our project was 2 years and initial results are very positive, but what is really needed to sustain the results achieved so far?
Right now, we need, I think, a combined effort right now. That's why we're coming on board. Showcase what we've already done. It's like a drop in the ocean. The demand is still high. As we talk right now, we're trying to do the project, but if you can see how many people right now are scrambling for our demos amid this COVID time right now, people are risking their lives. They are taking up, they have no any other source. If you can look at the, no any other source of income apart from vegetables right now. They're seeing vegetables the only way to go. So if we close the project right now, the way how it is, I think there is a lot of yearning demand. So we need other stakeholders to join hands. We need to join hands and see how we can proceed from where we've stopped right now.
So additional support needed. So Joost, can I ask you the same question? So what is really needed to sustain these initial positive results?
Certainly, one thing is indeed what Annette is also indicating. I would agree that you need to continue for at least for 2 or 3 more years, so that farmers can actually go through a number of bad cycles as well. That they actually experience that crops are poor or can fail, and yet they can be, that they can actually be supported to go through that and maintain that their basic trust and their willingness to continue with these activities through the good and the bad times. Or so that kind of consolidation is certainly necessary. In terms of actually reaching out, scaling the kind of impact, and as Annette said, this is it's a very valuable drop, but you need to also, to create a sector, just simply requires a lot more people doing comparable work. And Elijah can certainly speak to this from experiences in Tanzania and wider in East Africa. The necessity of working with, for example, government extension agencies, and seeking much more of these kinds of collaborations, so that there is a comparable high quality of support for farmers, to create a collective sense of that you can produce this at scale, and that there is a viable sector here, which will also draw in other people, the traders, the processors, and also the final retailers, who then actually are willing to invest and support from the market side, or not. Yes. So that's.
Maybe to add on something, right now we've seen a lot of urban rural migration. Because of the COVID, this is recent. Because of the COVID, there is a lot of people moving from the town because they cannot manage their families in towns. So they are pulling back to the villages. So they're putting pressure on the food sector on the villages. So we need to increase our investment in the food security in the villages. Otherwise, we are at risk of having hunger in the next few days to come.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yes.
Sorry, I think the last thing that's also critical is, there's obviously a choice to start with a high impact crop such as tomatoes, because that has a very high return on investment. At the same time, going forward, you're going to have to seek stability. And that means also diversifying into other crops, which allows rotation, but also allows to spread risk and to spread the market for horticulture beyond a few single crops, which could make it a too risky venture in the long term.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joost and Annette, for your answer. A lot still to be done, and clearly the need to create a cloud and work more intensively in this sector. Joost, you also mentioned return on investment for the farmer, and maybe it's good to start with tomato, which is a highly valuable crop. There's also a question in the comment section, like how, I can imagine that's very important for the farmer to show this return on investment, but how do you demonstrate that? And is then financial literacy also a constraint in demonstrating return on investment for farmers in vegetable growing? Annette, could you, or Joost, who would like to answer that? Yeah, maybe first Annette, then Joost.
Yeah, what we've seen is that you're talking about financial literacy. Indeed, it's true. We recognized that. So what we've tried to do, we are integrating it as part of our training. In the 5 modules we train to our farmers, that is part of the modules that we train in them. Otherwise, they need to know how much they're investing in and how much they're able to get out. If they have to have other sources of income, what are the options they can go in for? But still, we are not yet, I think I may say that we are not yet there. We are still starting.
Joost, would you like to add?
One last thing, because I also want to give some time for Elijah, because there's a wealth of information there. I don't think at the startup that financial literacy is a critical bottleneck. Going towards a long run, yes, it's an essential skill, but farmers literally, we saw people building houses from the profits made on that season's crop. And that's the kind of obvious demonstration of profitability that everybody sees, and that therefore for everybody demonstrates the potential of this. going forward, you need indeed to add that, you know, if that's part of professionalizing, you certainly need to add that.
Okay, thank you very much, Joost. I'm looking now at also James. I think we have to stop the discussion because we want to hand over the floor to Elijah also. But still, I would also like to, Elijah, like in his comments and wrap up, what advice does he have for other seed companies in horticulture, maybe other crops in this area? So how can they grow their market in emerging economies? So Elijah, I would really appreciate if you address that issue also in your final comments. And we only have 1 hour. There's a lot of interesting discussion in the chat, but so I see. I thank the audience. I thank all of the participants really for engagement. But yeah, now I have to hand over to James. So thank you very much.
Marja, Joost, and Annette, thank you very much for your contribution to that discussion. It was very informative, and I echo what Marja is saying. I think we could have planned for a 2-hour webinar almost. There's so much rich questions to go through in the chat. But indeed, I'd like to hand over to Elijah for a little bit of a wrap-up and any additions he feels are based on the discussion. And after that, I will close. So Elijah, maybe you could very quickly in 1 to 2 minutes, just introduce yourself and address perhaps that advice that Marja has pointed to you for.
Okay, you're hearing me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yes, I'm Elijah Mwashayenyi. I'm the head of East-West Seed Knowledge Transfer in Africa. At the moment, we are currently operating in Uganda, Tanzania, and Nigeria, and looking forward to expanding to other countries. But to answer the question, advice to other companies, there are many things I can actually say, but let me just say, any company that goes into a similar initiative like this with knowledge transfer has to go into it without looking at direct sales. Because once you do that, you lose the plot. It's something that one looks at for the long term. Then the company has to realize that it takes time to build that that development, that productivity, those higher yields, those that better access to markets, that better access to agro inputs. It takes some time for that to happen, and so any company that goes into it has to go into it for the long haul. Let me also add the fact that from the experience that you've heard from my colleague Annette, from the experience that we've had in Tanzania and that we're experiencing in Nigeria now, and even what we're experiencing in the Asian countries that we are working in, knowledge transfer is a good long-term strategy of empowering the rural communities to improve their livelihoods and incomes, and for sustainability of the vegetable sector. It is something that many people are not excited to do, basically because it's more or less a public service. However, we've been fortunate to find partners like ISSD. We've joined hands with us so that together we can support farmers. We continue to seek such like-minded partners. Thank you.